out that would counter that? Do you have any thoughts on practical thoughts based on this research of what kinds of communication might be effective in getting people to focus a bit more on the longer term effects? See, global warming is one of those things that, if you think the economy is bad, okay, then global warming drops. It goes up and down in terms of people's concerns. It floats, in a sense. If you ask people what are your top 10 concerns, depending upon what the media and what their experience tells them about other things. So do you have any practical thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and it would be a tough thing to do. I mean, I think, we do know that the majority of Americans' population, we are aware of global warming, and I would just think that the majority of Americans do know that when we talk about climate change, we are talking about changes in long-term averages of weather. We're not just talking about those changes in local weather in their town or city that day. But you're right. The question is, how can we get people to really think about this and think about all aspects of the issue, when they're making these judgments about belief and concern in global warming, and also, possibly even when voting on green policies or global warming initiatives.
Yeah, especially since our president seems to have pretty much abandoned his environmental platform and his environmental views. Our time is just about up. If people want to take a look at your paper, can they access it online?
So I think I'm not supposed to say this, but it should be available on my own website, which is yeeli.us. I'll post it on the front page sooner or later, YELI.us. Or you can find the press release at many locations, including the Association for Psychological Science, which is the publisher of the journal Psychological Science, where this paper is.
Okay, great. Thank you for being on the show, both Yi and Lisa Zaval. And we're going to go to our next guest now. We're now, again, for those of you who are new to the program, you'll see the range of topics that we do cover. We're going to be talking about the first tar sands mine in the United States. Tar sands, the huge amount of tar sands are in Canada, and there's tremendous concern about what that does to forests, what that does to water supply, what a pipeline from Canada to the United States would actually entail. But there's also a tar sands mine that's now being planned in the United States. I'm going to talk to John Weisheit, I believe, who is with Living Rivers, and he's going to talk about and again, pronunciation is eluding me here. It's Uinta Basin tar sands mine, so it's probably Unita or something. Welcome, John. You're going to help me with pronunciation here.
Good morning, Steve. Yeah, sure. My name is Weisheit.
Okay.
And it's Uinta. Utah is actually a nation with the Uinta Ute Indian tribe, for example, the Utes.
Okay.
So we're talking about a Numic language, yes.
So tell us about this mine. What's its timeline, and what will be its consequences if it goes through?
Well, it was approved back in 2009, but some environmental groups filed a protest and asked for more time and more public comment, so we got involved at that point in time, and we then filed protests informally before the board, or the organization that regulates this, which is called Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, and the staff heard our plea and denied it. So then we appealed to the board, and so, we've been able to stop this for a couple years now, but so nothing's been done. There is an exploration pit up there that's been dug into the ground, and there is some on-site processing equipment there, but there is actually no activity going on at this time.
Who's the owner?
The owner is an Alberta corporation called Earth Energy Resources.
And if this tar sands mine actually becomes operational, what will be its local effects?
Well, this is a high plateau. It's heavily dissected by drainages or canyons that flow to the Green River. The Green River is the biggest tributary in the Colorado River system. So it's the height, the elevation is 8,000 feet, but there's some places around there that are 10,000 feet. Right now it's snowbound, as a matter of fact. So what we're concerned about is that the chemicals that they're using are toxic and that they will enter the groundwater or the stream flow and enter into the Colorado River, and which is the only source of water that 30 million people have here in the Southwest.
What kinds of ostensible protection have the mine owners provided for this kind of to avoid this kind of leakage? Well,
that's just it. For example, you have to realize that there's going to be massive amounts of dynamite being used to break up the limestone so that they can get to the tar sands. And then they're going to process the tar sands, and the waste is going to be huge amounts of rubble and then, of course, sand. And they're going to put these in pits and, groom them, you could say, and then put topsoil on it and revegetate, which all has a bunch of serious problems that I'd like to talk about later. But the pits are not lined, and so they've broken up the natural groundwater flow of the system, and when it rains up there, and this is what's important to know, is that we get these cloud bursts that are so huge, sometimes they surpass the flow of the Colorado River itself. And so this moisture is just going to go percolate through the sand and the rubble and pick up the chemicals that they use for this processing, and then that becomes the vector for polluting the groundwater and eventually the Green River.
This, as you describe it, this seems pretty transparent. What's the other side's argument?
Well, they say their chemical is biodegradable, that it comes from orange rinds, citrus rinds from Florida and Brazil, and it's a delimoline. But so we've asked them, well, if it's safe, why don't you let us have the chemical signature so we can verify that? And they refuse to give us that information. They say it's proprietary. So we don't have that information. We can't make the determination that it's safe. Only they can do that, and they're unwilling to provide that information.
Yeah, and they have a vested interest, obviously.
Right, but there's problems with this, because I don't know if the listeners are aware that there were freezes in Florida and Brazil. There's actually a shortage of this chemical. It's my understanding they couldn't even begin the processing if they wanted to, because there's a shortage, which means that this could happen in the future, and that it would interrupt their schedule, and it would interrupt the investment of the project. So what we see this is kind of as very much speculative, and that eventually workers and investors are going to be disappointed down the road. So it's definitely a working man's financial problem as well.
You mentioned some other problems that you wanted to discuss about pollutants and how this mine is going to be operated. What are they?
Well, so there's this thing about reclaiming it with topsoil and revegetating it. I've been to the site. There's not any topsoil there. So what that essentially means is if they disturb this soil, it's just going to sit there and bake in the summer sun and get blown away. And typically what happens when you disturb the Colorado Plateau, and for the reason that it hardly has any topsoil at all, is that it produces huge crops of weeds, And they're deforesting this place. It's a place that has gamble oak, aspens, ponderosa pine. They're literally going to denude this place and totally alter this landscape. But If I might, just make one more comment, is that one of the huge problems we have in the Colorado River Basin is dust. Increasingly, we have large dust storms that blow into the Rocky Mountains, settle on the snow, which increases sublimation and evaporation, and it decreases the load of the Colorado River water supply. So it's definitely a greenhouse gas problem that is going to decrease the water supply, and I think people like the Metropolitan Water District in Los Angeles is going to be concerned that this is going to hurt water supplies down the line, and maybe we should be thinking of this as a watershed and not a sacrifice zone to the oil corporations.
Is there any indication that LA is aware of this?
Yes, they called me.
Okay, that's very clear, and that's actually a good sign.
Yes,
and because you need some muscle behind you. If people want to learn more about what's happening in the Uinta Basin. Uinta. I'm going to get it right after the show is off the air. Uinta Basin in Utah. Where can they get more information? And if they actually want to participate in opposing this, how might they do it?
Well, they can visit it's a website that I created. It's called farcountry.org, and in there is a resource section, and in the resource section is a subheading called Oil, Shale, and Tar Sands, and they can go there. It's my electronic file cabinet. I have every document I own is linked onto that website, so there's more information there than you could ever imagine. And what they should do is, there's a lot of things they could do. Is they could write letters to the board of Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, explaining, it doesn't have to be long, but it should be succinct and comprehensive. Carry a few important points and send it to them.
You might want to, just as a small aside, you might want to put up a prototype of the letter on your website.
Yeah, they could actually also read an article of mine that will help them. It's on a website called onthecolorado.org, all one word, lowercase, and I have an article in there about strip mining in canyon country, and they're welcome to steal all my ideas.
Okay. So we're gonna keep track of this because tar sands in Canada are alarming enough, and if this process begins to become or look plausible in the United States, it certainly is cause for concern. And this is the first, I think, the first attempt in the United States.
It is.
So this is actually it's small. Not much is happening right now, but down the road, this looks like it could be significant. So I thank you.
You're welcome. It'll be no different than what's going on in Appalachia.
Yeah, and mountaintop mining does not. When they claim to restore the mountaintop after they blow it off, it's a complete fraud.
Right.
So and this topsoil stuff is gonna be much of the same sort of thing. So John, we've been talking with John Weisheit. And we've been talking about tar sands mining in Utah. Thank you for being our guest, John.
You're welcome, Steve.
And this is Steve Barnett, your host for the Paradise Parking Lot. And if this is your first time, I can guarantee you that next Wednesday's show will have completely different topics, and we will explore them in depth. I hope you will continue to listen and join me next Wednesday at 10 a.m.